that I hadn't worn, and I don't know how long, but tempered with the reality of what's still happening and what's continuing to happen. And with that, I was very happy to we had our um, um, orientation and welcome with our student trustees and student advisory that we were able to attend, and we had our first student advisory meeting. As a board, we had our workshop and goal setting session with Superintendent Presta, and those are always the meetings I like the most because that's the stuff that I ran for school boards to do, not really deal with pandemics and development, but really to look at, how do we as a school district work to continually strive for the goal to be better, so I'm glad that all the board members that showed up to that, I thank you for that work, and I'm looking forward to this year working together.
Thank you.
Indeed, to the new trustees, welcome. Nice to have you here, and it's going to be quite the learning adventure for you over the course of the next year, but very grateful for your service and your willingness to commit your time in service of the district. And I'm also looking forward to the wisdom that you will be bringing to this body and to our district. So thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing your leadership. And for our community, I completely agree with you, Trustee Salhuddin, and I am grateful that we are back with this new school year, and it is good to see students here. It's good to be able to walk around and see the activity and see the activity whether online with various social media posts, and certainly being able to see what's happening here at the district office as well. I have yet to be able to make it to a campus, but just seeing the buzz and feeling the buzz is good despite the weird pandemic circumstances we continue to find ourselves in. But grateful to everybody who's working so hard for all of our students and doing, I know, an amazing, incredible job to educate the over 4,000 students of our community. So thank you all.
Thank you. I'm super excited about our Student Advisory Council. We had our first, we had a training, but we also had our first official meeting last night, and they're fabulous. And talk about schooling us. We're going to learn so much from them. And they are vocal, which is what we like. They're advocates also. And we're still looking for a few more student trustees or advisory council members from Thornton and Jefferson. Let's see. So I have a senior at Jefferson. So that is the first week. It was hard because she's an ASB, and so now I have to get up earlier. I can't set my alarm later like I used to because she doesn't drive. And before COVID, she had started to try to get her learner's permit, and after that, it just, why bother if mom can drive you everywhere? So, but right now, I'm still working from home. So, but we'll have to, like many other families, we'll have to cross that road when we come to it when I have to go back to work in person. It was really great to briefly go to the new teachers welcome. Really fantastic, great energy in that room. Love seeing new educators. And also was able to welcome, along with Ms. Presta, our adult ed faculty. And that was really, and we saw some retired teachers there as well. They just can't leave, so it's fantastic that we have real experienced people there helping in adult ed. And I'm excited for the school year. It's going to be a lot of work, and there's a lot of work we need to do, but I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Ms. Presta, it's yours.
Thank you. So actually, a lot of what was already said by the trustees, I will reiterate. I'm going to have a really lengthy update about COVID, so I'm not going to mention COVID-related items now, but really, I'm just very, very happy to begin the school year with kids on campus and staff on campus. A lot of firsts, we had the new staff, we had the adult school staff welcome, the first day of school. I've been on all the campuses. our leadership team has been on all the campuses. I've been on the campuses with Miss Casey, and as we would expect, there's, still trying to figure out some pathways and still figuring out some of the ways we're doing everything. But really, we're doing things very safely, and I've been very happy to see that everybody has their masks on, keeping safe in our schools. So I'm really looking forward to the school year, and I agree with Trustee Salahuddin, like some of the things, when we have work studies on a Saturday, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't love working all day on a Saturday, but it helps when you're working on something that's really important, and I agree it was a really good day. So mostly I'm just really excited and grateful for the teachers and the leaders and the students and really everybody in the school district who's doing their best to make it a success this year.
Okay, thank you. Now a report from our AFT President, Monica Casey.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back. Same meetings everyone else was at. The new certificated staff, not just teachers, it also includes counselors and a few other certificated staff members. The all-staff welcome, and the adult school returning meeting. And then some AFT union meetings that we've had. We had our first AFT 1481 exec board meeting where we had a visit, and it was on Zoom, an online visit from the CFT president, Jeff Friedis. So that was really nice. Was able to answer some questions. Same issues we have up and down the state. Different counties have different regulations and guidelines. So I was speaking to someone today about, so I will bring up COVID. LA County, LAUSD is basically saying that they are mandating certain things, but actually it's the county that's mandating it, whereas our county is not, which is upsetting that, one county is doing one thing and another county is doing another thing. We all should be doing the same thing, and I would like us all to be doing the more strenuous item as LA County is doing, but, so it sounds like LAUSD is doing more than we are, but it's really the county that's doing it, and then they're getting kind of, press for saying that they're doing these things for their district, which is a little interesting. Today I had my first union chat, so I'm gonna do room and Zoom, so I'm gonna be out of sight. So today I was at Terra Nova, but then I also opened up the Zoom so that people that weren't at Terra Nova could also participate, and so I will be practicing along with our educators that have done that, or the people that have done that with meetings, just to continue that. I think that's one of the positives that we learned, that we could have more participation outside of the room by bringing those people in for meetings like that. A lot of questions, a lot of trepidation from people, but mostly staff is very happy to see students. And I think that's the thing that warms all of our hearts. Obviously, we're not in this for the money. We would like to get paid a living wage and be able to live in our communities. But, most of the educators and the people on staff are really happy to see the students. So let's keep that going. That's it.
Thank you. Now for our departmental COVID-19 updates.
I will begin. I've got a lot of COVID updates.
Okay.
So I actually wrote down some notes. I'd make sure to mention everything. So first off, I'm very happy to share that we are interviewing for the COVID director position this week. So the interviews are actually tomorrow, and we've got some really great candidates, and I feel really hopeful that we're going to find somebody and have that person in place pretty quickly. So thank you to the HR department, who's done a really great job getting this going. As we've seen, there's just a lot to do with COVID. And I will echo the sentiment that I kind of thought, okay, we're going to start this year, it's going to be really different than last year, and we're kind of seeing that there's a lot that's going into the COVID preparation. As you all know, I'm sure by now, California Public Health Officer issued an order, it was on August 11th, that requires all schools to find out the vaccination status of employees, volunteers, et cetera, paid and unpaid, find out the vaccination status, and if people are not vaccinated, then they need to take a COVID test at least once a week. So we had already actually discussed doing this for safety because it's a good idea. But so we had already sort of gone down the path looking into testing and best ways to gather the information. So we were already a couple steps ahead of that. And so I'm happy to say that Associate Superintendent Basuino is going to share with you in a few moments the information about the COVID testing. She got it going really very quickly. So we were hoping to have it by the beginning of September, and it looks like we're going to have it before that. So that's really great. And I got the information. So Director Lujan yesterday sent out the request for vaccination status from employees, and she reported to me earlier today that 573 employees received the communication yesterday about providing the vaccination status. So far, 247 people, or 42% of our employees, have already responded. So that's a really great response rate in just one day. Of those who have responded, only 12 out of the 247 people are unvaccinated or have decided not to share their status. Because somebody can just not share their status and then they're just treated as unvaccinated. So it's good to know that data, and we will keep you posted on more as we get it. I wanted to share with you some documents. Before I do that, I also wanted to mention that later on in this board agenda, Ms. Baca is going to be talking to you about independent study. So it's really related to COVID, but we're not going to talk about it in the COVID update because there's an agenda item on that. But as you may know, also, I know the board and employees know, the state of California has not given the school district, there's no legislation providing for distance learning this year. So I know that that's a question that's come up, like how come the school district isn't providing distance learning? How come we're not having hybrid learning like we had in the past? And there's a really straightforward reason for that. We aren't allowed to. There's no provision for that. So we are providing independent study for those students who wish to do that, and it is different than the typical independent study. So Ms. Baca will talk about that a little bit later. Now I would like to ask Mr. Meyer to share a couple of the things that we've been working on. So we realized that, thank you. So we realized that we need to have something on our website that makes it readily available for really easy to access for the public to see how many COVID cases we have. So we created, and we worked on this today. So this is a draft, so we're certainly happy to hear your thoughts.
Seeing the beta test, we got you.
Pardon me?
I said we're seeing the beta test, we got you.
Beta tester, you're beta testing, exactly. So, and thank you to Mr. Austin Worden, who put this together very quickly once we had a lot of talking about it, and then he got it going really quickly for us. So this actually shows the current data. It's not on our website yet. We're going to be putting it on there once we decide that this is good to go. But what it will show, we have it by month, is how many positive cases there are per school site. So as you can see, in August, since we've just started, we've got 2 at Jefferson, 1 at Oceana, 1 at Terra Nova, 1 at Westmore, and 1 at the district office. Okay, So we will keep it updated daily. Jake, can you scroll up too? We also, sorry, scroll down, yeah. We're thinking that the spring semester dashboard, we can just pull off and then we'll put it on when we get to that month, just for visuals. Can you scroll down a little bit more? And then there's just some explanation, like what is reported, all confirmed COVID-19 cases among personnel and students physically present at district schools and facilities during their infectious period for COVID-19. So that's what will be reported. So we've given some definition to what is reported, and then what's not reported. We are not going to report cases of students who are in 100% independent study, because they weren't on campus. Or staff who is working remotely, or et cetera. So it makes very clear what's reported and what's not. We share that the dashboard will be updated within 24 hours of the district learning of a confirmed COVID-19 case. We also note that we thought about how we would be reporting these cases, and there are 0.5 cases reported, and that's when an individual who's confirmed positive was at 2 locations during the infection period. So I guess we didn't talk about this. Maybe if you're at 3 or 4, we break it up, the fraction even differently. Because if we report them as 1 at each site, then the total number is too high. When a student or staff member is confirmed positive for COVID-19, this just talks about what's going to happen. Parents, guardians, or staff members must immediately report the case to their school's point of contact. A student who tests positive must remain at home or go home immediately if the test result is received. So this kind of talks about it in words. We also created a flow chart graphic that I'll show you in a moment that gets way more specific about what happens. Because what we've also learned in this past week is there are lots of questions and there's lots of nuances. You know, well, I was in the room with this person and I didn't have my mask on and they did, or I was outside and I was within 2 feet, and there's just so many different permutations. So we have borrowed from, we looked at the San Mateo County Office of Education's flow chart, we looked at Santa Clara County Office of Ed's flow chart, we've looked at different school districts to see how they're reporting things, and we, as Trustee Salhoudin said, we're beta testing. We can change. You know, if we find that we need some different information, we can always amend things. But this is a good starting place. Jake, is there much more below that? Site. We mentioned that there's site isolation rooms. We haven't really talked about this, but every site has somewhere where a person who is test positive or has symptoms, they can go in an isolation room. So they're not sort of in the midst of everybody else. And then, is that it? Yeah, okay. And then I'll share the flow charts, and, you know, while this isn't a discussion item, I would love to hear your thinking. So thank you, Jake. So this is our quarantine. I'm not going to go through all of it right now. We can share this with you just because it's a lot of detail. But basically what this does is it starts with there's a COVID positive person in a school setting. Were they in the vicinity of anybody? You know, were they in close contact? Were they in a classroom? If no, there are no close contacts who need to quarantine. And that's that about quarantining, because this is quarantine requirements. If they were in contact, is the exposed person a student? If yes, then you go to the right and you go through all the blue ovals. If it's an adult, you go to the other side and there's green. You go through all these decisions. Are they vaccinated? Are they not vaccinated? Were they wearing masks? Were they not wearing masks? And at each section, there's a decision to be made. And then at the bottom, you basically decide if they're quarantined, if they need a COVID test, when they need to COVID test, do they need to wait till day 5? If the test comes back negative on day 7, they can come back. So there's lots of detail, but it's really drawn out there, so it's very specific. So I realize that is a lot of information. And we're gonna share this, so the executive cabinet went over this morning. Mr. Warden created it. I then worked on it and changed and tweaked. And I want to bring it back to the executive cabinet before we actually, publish it live. But I actually, and Ms. Van Raphorst was looking at it with me. We really found some errors in logic, actually, that we had seen, and I think we're there. But we think that if we put this on the website, if we share it really broadly on school sites and with parents and with students, it will make us all safer, number one, but it also will sort of lower our anxiety levels. There is anxiety, we're gonna have that, but if you kind of know what you're dealing with, it's a little better. So with
It's gonna
that,
be translated.
pardon me?
Mm-hmm.
And translated, yes. Exactly, we actually talked about that this morning, I think. Yeah.
And everything, because right now it's all in English on the website currently.
So are you asking if we're gonna translate?
There's stuff already on the website it's all in English. So are we gonna translate, like not just this, but all the COVID-19 stuff that's in Spanish?
We certainly can.
That
Yeah,
would
we
be-
hadn't talked about translating all of it, but we certainly can. Mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah. Did you have any thinking on, the previous slide where we have the dashboard? Any thoughts on the dashboard? Yeah.
So for me, I'm okay with this if we're emailing every parent when there's a case, every parent and student, and this is why. When the county was doing their dashboard, this is what they did. It was impossible to tell. So what I had to do was keep my own dashboard to monitor each day, or we're gonna do month, what the number is so I can tell how many additional cases there were. So if it's August and you don't keep track, like if you're not checking it every time we say that there's a new case, it could go from 2 to 10. If that's the first time you're looking at it, you're like 10. Was it 10 today? Was it 10? So if you could go back and look through your emails, you could tell how many were that were new, like the alert to go to the dashboard, or if there's something that's going to be on there that says one additional at Jeff for the day, that is so we keep this, but there's a daily update that's on the top that you just put the daily numbers in at the top each day, but,
So we did talk about, should we do it by week, and we were trying to create something that had the information that was helpful, and that was easy to read, and we were having a hard time with the easy.
so I think you could still keep
part,
this and
yeah.
then just have it change, like, we don't have to put every single day. It's just today's COVID infection rate. So this is for the whole month, and then it's just today's. It doesn't even have to have the date on it. It just says today's. And then each school, and it has 00 or 1, 0,
I
and
got you.
so that you can know when you look at it, how many were added on that day. Because I think this may cause, without context, if you've never looked at it, and then you looked at it and you see 10 or 12, you don't know if that was in one day. You don't know if that was spread over the whole month. So I still do think that, so to add context to this. And then I do think that we need to alert every single time, everyone, just because people are gonna learn. I would rather they learn from us than social media. And then social media changes it, maybe through the grapevine, the number changes. So if they hear from us, and it's not just parents, but also students, it's direct from us. And we can control that message. We can't control social media, and anytime we send something out, I know on social media, you know, but almost at the same time, I get an email from the district. I know when the email has gone out to the parent because it's on social media. So they're gonna hear about it. So I would rather they hear about it directly from us and not learn on it about YouTube or Twitter, where people can comment and maybe have misinformation.
So, and that actually brings to mind something that we heard earlier, that, and we've changed our practice. When we had the first case at Terra Nova, we alerted the parents of the children who were, the students who were in close contact. We didn't alert the students. We realized, we needed to alert the students. So then there was a case at Westmore, and we started that practice. So we've already amended that practice. We are alerting both the students who are close contact as well as the parents who are close contact. So we have done that. But to your point, we have not sent out, and we did last year send out to the whole school community or the whole site if there was a case. We have not been doing that this past week. We have only been alerting the close contacts. And so what we were proposing was to create this dashboard and then alert the school or the site community. There was a, please check, there was a change to the dashboard, and not sending out that letter. But to clarify, you're saying, yeah, you'd actually rather get the letter sent out to this community saying there was a case on your site today. Is that what you're saying, or you're saying you think it
So
might
if
be
you're-
okay
if-
to say, check the dashboard today?
So if we're sending a letter that just says check the dashboard, then I would prefer that there is something that has the information of that day
Yeah.
on the top
Okay,
or somewhere.
okay,
That is the day alert, and then they could also see what's happened in the month, and you could also see what's happened.
yeah, okay.
You know, well, I learned about the Westmore case from my daughter
Yeah.
because she heard it from one of her friends who had heard it from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so she learned about it before I did, and I'm on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then also, like Ms. Salahuddin said, I mean, I think this is a good start, but definitely, if you're just checking, and you hadn't checked for a week, and all of a sudden there's 10, or you haven't ever checked, I would be alarmed. But I think, when I had found out there was a case at Jefferson, I was waiting for an email that said it was my child may have been in contact. And it's because I knew there was a case, but I was on edge waiting to see if I was going to get that email.
Yeah.
And then I was checking my spam and I was refreshing and, because sometimes that email goes into spam. So I would be more relieved, I think, if I got the email that there was a case, and that if your child may have been in close contact, you will get a separate email with instructions. But also, in the early days of COVID, we would always watch, go to the
That county website?
the county website and see how high things were getting, infection rates were getting, and you could go daily also, so you can see, I mean, it's a lot, but I mean, you can see by school, what the rates are.
Are you
If you,
looking by school? What dashboard were you looking by school?
No, she was saying that
if
I see what you're
we
saying.
did.
that maybe
If we
we
did.
could do that. Well, I'm assuming you're meaning maybe
Yeah,
we should
maybe
do that
we
so you
could
see
do
the
that.
rate. Yeah. Okay. You've given us food for thought to go back to the drawing board. Yes, Doreen?
So I just, I think part of what we brought up in executive cabinet is the fact that, at Terra Nova, we notified the case, right, the parents, right, and we said your kids are close contact. But some of the parents received multiple emails because their student was in contact with that person multiple ways. So now they're getting 2 letters. And then, so I think in executive cabinet, we were just trying to figure out how do we distinguish between, because we don't want to panic, right? Like
Yeah.
you said, oh, I want that first letter, but if I'm a parent, I want the close contact letter first. So, and then, and then to make sure that the parent isn't panicking. So I think it's just, we have to figure out how to title the letters or,
Yes.
something to be able to say, hey, or to ensure that they get the close contact letter first and then
And maybe there's set times, like,
there's
the,
multiple letters.
right, but I mean, like, maybe the alert that goes to everyone is just always at 6, or something like that, and then the other stuff is at a different time.
Possible, we'll think about it. It's just
Okay.
that we get these,
Yeah, I
we
would
get these on the
imagine.
weekends.
Yeah,
So, I don't know if that's, but we'll just have to figure out the title and then try to let parents know what's going to be in the letter through the title.
okay, right.
And we're really grateful that we're gonna hire a full-time person to work on this,
Exactly.
because
Oh,
I
good
am
Lord.
telling you, we would
Yeah.
love to get back to educating.
And as one of our student advisory council members said last night, her mother had gotten an email saying your child may have been in close contact, with someone who tested positive for COVID, but mom didn't know if it was
Yeah.
for her or for her little sister,
Yeah.
because she has 2 students at the school. So that's
We
another
did
thing.
discuss that
Yeah.
too today, and we talked about, how do we mail merge information? I mean, when you're having this quantity of communication, it becomes complex.
Yes.
And so we talked about the best ways to do that, and what we came to was by adding the notification to the students additionally, that would be clear. That we could still just send out the general letter, as long as the student was also receiving it. Because in that case, if the student would have received it, they would have known that their sibling didn't receive it. So, because it was a little complex on trying to figure out which data systems to, plug in where to get the letters sent out so that some
Right.
person's not entering manually all of the kids' names.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's how we solved that one.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Just a little view into the complexities of this. But at any rate, that's our starting point, and we will iterate and reiterate as needed, but I think we've got a good start. So I will turn it
Oh,
over
yeah,
to
so,
Associate Superintendent
So,
Pasquino.
hello. So we have,
Trustee Ochapinti had his hand up.
Oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I'll wait till after the presentation. It's fine.
Yeah, so we were just talking about, thanks, Nick. So we were just talking about, we'll be working with Inspire for the diagnostic testing, and that will be taking place starting next week at the district office, Jefferson, Oceana, Terra Nova, and Westmore, 2 days a week. And all the times will be pushed out to the parents. But this is what they call their dashboard. So this is where we're going to send parents and staff to be able to pre-register. So they can just show up. They only have to do it one time, and they can show up. So there we go. So this is where you would go. And so if you're a student, you would click student. And if school level, it would be high school. And then you could pick Jefferson. And then if you go down and you're an athlete, you can pick the sport that you're in. And you can click that. If you're not in a sport, you don't have to click it. And then it sends the parent down to the next thing, and then they start to register their kid. And this is more for us than it is for the student, because it helps us keep people separated or to know what things they are involved in. So it just kind of helps us out. But once the kids register for that, or the parents do, then they're done. They don't have to register again. They just show up for the testing. Staff is the same way. This is the same company we use for summer school at Jefferson. So if a student has already registered, the parent already registered for them, they don't have to register again. They're already in the system. So super excited. The sites are going to be ready for them to show up, and they do everything. We just give them a space, and they show up and do everything, and then we get the reports.
So is testing voluntary, or it's?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
at this time.
at this time. We could possibly, they have the capacity if we wanted to make it mandatory. It's just is to be able to pay for it, or?
So, right now, they, if you look at the bottom on the dashboard, it tells you who they charge. They, will charge their health, or they'll charge the state,
So
but
it's-
they're not charging us.
So it's under healthcare guidelines of if
Yeah.
you're qualified, okay. got
Yeah,
it.
and all that information's on the dashboard too, so, which
Okay.
is great.
I'm
But-
sorry. It's not, it is mandatory for people who either don't share their vaccination status or are not vaccinated.
If you're a
For
staff, if for staff,
Mhm.
okay, but not for students.
Not for students.
Yeah, right, yeah, and so we're gonna, and these guys are they're pretty open. They said if we need to switch times around or anything like that, or, right now they can test 100 in about an hour. So, we're gonna see how it works, and if we have to extend the time, we can extend the time.
Can I just really say that, honestly, again, how great a job Associate Superintendent Vessalino did at this, because about a week ago, she said, say the word, and because I was like, I really think we need to do, and she's like, say the word, and I'm on it. I was like, okay, and it was Friday afternoon, and, like a week away, and she's got it all set up, so it's pretty amazing, so thank you.
Just gonna give us more work.
And I don't think that the other departments have updates for tonight,
Oh,
for COVID. We covered it.
okay.
I have one question, just to follow up. You answered, I think, a large part of that. Testing, I think, just moving forward and just continuing to have that is a really big part. Just looking at our website, will this be posted on our homepage for the website, and where will it be placed so that people have easy access to it?
So, it'll be emailed out to the parents, and then the principals will also be emailing out, but we'll definitely put a section on the website, so it's pretty easy for people to find. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, wasn't sure because I arrived here late. My apologies. I was running late on public transit, and just people know there is a shortage of buses right now due to COVID-19 and the impacts on our transit workers, as well as at the mall. Some of them are opening later or staying open later, but they're closing earlier because of the concerns around the Delta variant. And so just keeping that in mind, be mindful of, I think, the community we're living in, taking a pulse of the larger community outside of our school district. Sites is really important. And to that effect, I may have missed this, but I did want to hear from the students what their thoughts and maybe even feedback on some of this, these updates will be.
I think we need to keep going with the agenda because we do have, I think it's going to be a long agenda. I think we could have that conversation maybe offline. But I think we should stick to the agenda, and that's not an agendized item.
Well, I was just, in the interest of them being students since the first, second week of school, that if they want to speak on it maybe earlier than later, because otherwise they won't have the opportunity to speak at this meeting on
Well,
it.
they
Well, they
did.
did speak earlier when they gave their reports and reported on,
Okay, yeah, that's what I asked to
Yeah.
begin with. Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's,
Thank you.
they did talk about that in the beginning. So,
All right, thank you.
moving on to the consent items.
Move to approve items on consent.
Actually, I have a request to pull an item that I did notify before. It is item 12C11.
Okay, so move to approve consent minus item 12C11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So,
Can we add 12C11 to discussion items so we can just go to public comment?
yes. All right, so let's, we'll go ahead and do that, if you don't mind. So we'll go on to public comment. Belle?
Okay, we actually have two public comments. The first one is actually in person, and I don't know if the second one is in person or not, is here or not. But, the first one is Gerald Lim. And just before you all get started.
And his mom.
You can, and your mom. You can have a seat. Just wanted to let you know that customarily you have 3 minutes to make your comment, and at the end of the 3 minutes, I will call your time, okay?
Good evening, council members. My name is Gerald Lim, and I live right here in Daly City, in the older neighborhood between the top of the hill and the BART station. I'm a rising senior at Sacred Heart Cathedral Preparatory and was fortunate enough to participate in the American Heart Association's Youth Health Equity Council internship program this year. One of the issues that we have covered extensively was vaping. Perhaps most of you know that vaping is a rapidly growing issue among youths. In 2019, 30% of all high school students reported vaping. In 2018, only 20% of high schoolers vaped. In addition to high schoolers, middle schoolers have also begun to pick up the habit. 11% reported to vape in 2019, up from 5% the year before. The long-term effects of vaping are still unknown, but with massive amounts of nicotine in e-cigarettes, as much as 5%, which translates to roughly 1 pack of regular cigars per vape cartridge, the effects on the mind could be detrimental. There are many students at my school vaping. I've seen classmates changing their vapes in the classroom, sometimes even during class. I see many students vaping in the bathrooms. On occasion, I've also heard my peers casually talking about vaping later in the day. I'm here this evening because I want to help bring this issue up to students in my community. One of the things we have learned in the Health Equity Council is that most users don't know that there's a large amount of nicotine, which is highly addictive. In addition, there are other harmful substances in each cartridge. I've reached out to the FDA and ordered posters that are directed towards teens. The posters warn and inform students about the dangerous substances inside of each vape. I've posted some of these posters in my school classrooms, cafeteria, gym, and some other places that have high foot traffic. I'm urging the schools in Daly City to do the same. I realize that everyone is concerned about the COVID-19 pandemic, but I hope we don't lose track of other dangers, such as vaping, which was happening before the pandemic hit. I'd like to leave you with these posters for distribution if that's okay. Alternatively, I can distribute them directly to the schools in Daly City. Please let me know how I can help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very much.
That's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Happy to take them, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Much.
Thank you so much. You did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to discussion items.
Actually.
No, actually, that should go, that 15,
Oh, 12C11.
I'm sorry, 12C11 goes to action. Okay.
Open public comment.
We have one more public
One more
comment.
comment?
Okay.
Let's see, Carrie Smidley? Carrie Smidley? She's
Phone
not
call?
here. Is it Zoom or anything? Nothing? Okay.
Okay. So discussion items. Daly City Youth Health Center Advisory Board meeting. Ms. Van Raphorst?
President Tejada, good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce to you Mr. Jonathan Portney, who is our Executive Director of the Daly City Youth Health Center, and he is going to address the board.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I came in a little bit late and I didn't get your names. Could I start from right to left and get the students' names really quick?
Natalie?
Natalie, Sharon,
Ava.
Ava. It's a pleasure. I'm glad you're here. You are the game changers. You are the drivers to the initiatives and the insight that we need to make the change that you want. I want to thank the advisory and the board of directors for holding ship. What I saw on the PowerPoints today is admirable. We're going through a difficult time. We're not living in 2019 anymore. 2019 models do not work. We're creating something new. I want to thank the parents, the students, and the community for working with us as we navigate it. Seems like every week there's a new mandate, a new expectation, a booster shot. It's overwhelming. So, a little bit about the organization I work for, a little bit about myself, and a little bit about why I'm here today. The organization I get to work for is Jefferson Unified School District. A lot of people don't know. a lot of families, students, and faculty don't know, is we have a satellite health center for you, for community. And what we do at this satellite health center, which is school-linked, is we provide primary health care, which is your basic physical, immunization, reproductive health, right? And we provide behavioral mental health with licensed marriage and family therapists, AMFTs. I heard you mention that. That was a need, right? And we also provide alcohol and drug services and youth engagement through Project Play and Sex Education Squad. Over the past 30 years, we've been doing this. And over the past 30 years, it seems like we've been going and providing the services at an astronomical rate, but I feel like there's a missing link, and that's why I'm here today. The missing link is full integration. Now is the time, right? To separate the distance of satellite and get more integrated into school base. This year alone, we've been able to expand our staff from about 3 or 4 or 5 to about 16 or 17. And we're looking to integrate in schools to provide behavioral health care, mentorship, AOD services, and soon, hopefully, alternative to suspension programs, right? Now,
Really quickly, Jonathan, what is AOD service?
alcohol and drug services.
Acronyms.
So the reason why Daly City Youth Health Center is unique is because we get to work with San Mateo County Medical. And with San Mateo County Medical, we get the privilege of working with licensed nurse practitioners and physicians to be able to look at COVID-19 relief, COVID-19 vaccinations, what have you. And we also get to work with behavioral health clinicians who can work with not only the student, but the families and couples. Special. Just recently, and the reason why I'm here today is to invite the board to a special event. And by all means, you and friends are welcome to join as well. We have a advisory board meeting coming up. I've been working, not I, we, Daly City Youth Health Center, have been working with the University of San Francisco, Department of Public Health, and the Department of Nursing to identify what the needs are. Historically, how this has been identified is we take a top-down approach, right? A top-down approach as a public health term means that these professionals, these doctors, these people who dive into books, right? They go into communities and they get a bunch of information and they do a bunch of calculations and they try to figure out what it is that community needs, rather than taking a public health approach term, which is a bottom-up approach, working with community to identify what those needs are. We took a bottom-up approach to our most recent needs assessment with youth and community, your peers. And a couple things we're telling, a couple things stood out, and I want to share it with you and then invite you to a special event. We took a needs assessment. The needs assessment in collaboration with the University of San Francisco was empowering youth during COVID-19 by promoting health and self-advocacy. Important, right? You're the leaders, you're the drivers. You tell us what you need and we try to meet that, not the other way around. That said, a couple things stood out to us during this needs assessment with a handful of youth within community age 12 to 25, and that is top identifiers. The key themes that were identified by the young people as concerns regarding their community health and well-being were racism, COVID-19, mental health, access to health care, and body image. Now, I couldn't come up with this on my own. None of us could. If someone were to tell me body image was an issue, I would say, show me the evidence. We suck it, and we got it. So, if we want to rank those in order, mental health, top priority issue. That's why I pointed it out. We want to meet that need. How we're going to meet that need is we need to integrate Daly City Youth Health Center 16+ AMFTs into the schools to be able to meet the need of the students when they need it. There should not be a gap time in how people get put into this system. Historically, what would happen is we would try to connect someone to a system and they would get put in a line, right? They would get put into a line and then maybe they'll get seen in a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. No, cut out the middleman. So we say, okay, well, if you need to get seen now, how do we get to you now? How do we get to you and your family now? Not only that, but how do we meet all the other needs? Food insecurity, housing insecurity, academic resilience, all these things that are critically important. So what I would like to do is proposition that the board come to this unique event. You're welcome as well. You're sitting at the table. Come to this unique event to hear from the University of San Francisco as the University of San Francisco and Daly City Youth Health Center develop their strategic plan over the next 5 years. 5 years. We're going to work on the strategic plan together with the district to create a comprehensive, integrated healthcare system to break down the barriers so that when you need it, you get it. Because again, you're the drivers. You're the most important. We want to meet you where you're at, but it's going to be critical that you come to the table, no pun intended, because you're here. It's going to be critical that you come to the table and tell us what you need, right? We're here for you. And it's going to be held on August 26th, right? And I have all my staff coming. All San Mateo medical leadership is coming. And I would like the board and the youth advisory to come as well to receive an awesome presentation about how together, as a community, we can change the system. Now, this is unique because there's only a few comprehensive integrative health systems in the country. And we can do it. We can set the bar. We can be the difference. And now's the time. Because, again, we're not living in 2019 anymore, right? We need to look 4, 5 years ahead. At this point, we need to look ahead to figure out how we can do it. And I love what Doreen is doing with that COVID-19 response. That's beautiful. I don't think a lot of people are doing that. So it's amazing. So I want to invite you.
Yeah.
I want to invite all of you to the table to hear this delivery, and I want to work with the board, not independently, but collaboratively, to help us with that 5-year strategic plan to really integrate San Mateo County Medical and Daly City Youth Health Center into Jefferson Union and all the other districts' health system.
So, this was here because I had brought this up previously, and we just wanted to formally say it's okay. But we had talked about this earlier in that the advisory board for the Daly City Youth Health Center is really acting like their board, and they give direction, and that is not their role. We are their board. So we should be the ones giving that direction and giving more guidance. And we have not really functioned as the Daly City Youth Health Center's board outside of just approving their financials and approving grants. So I think that needs to change, and especially integrating them, as JP said, into our school district as our health clinic. And a lot of times I've seen in the past where we have duplicated services, where we offer a service that they offer, but we are helping finance the center. So how do we bring the center in and maximize the utilization of that resource? So I think the first step to do that is that we step into the role of being their full board. But to do that, we need to learn more. And so this is a great meeting that I think will help get us all on a foundational knowledge to move forward in acting in their role as the Daly City Youth Health Center's board.
Yeah, first I want to thank you for the presentation. As a teacher, one of the first things my instinct is to always address the youth as well. I think it is a youth health center, and the idea of integrating it across, not just here locally at the sites and with our students, but with the county, where they should play a bigger role, I think, in creating more health care opportunities in our county. When we look at Seton Hospital and how much time and energy and lobbying it took just to save our local hospital, it shouldn't be like that. But when we have a publicly funded health center here that serves our youth, which I used when I was a student here, which I know a lot of my friends and being raised by a nurse, like those are the kind of things I volunteered at Seton, noticing that some people have access, but some people don't. And so creating that openness and that, I think that fluidity in communication across those lines, like the kind of things we're doing around COVID, are absolutely not just essential, but things that we should be looking forward in kind of innovating and kind of raising that bar. Here in the Bay Area, especially in San Mateo County, where there's so much funding, there's no reason why we should be worried about just the financials, about supporting, the health center and relocating it, which took years. And Director Kim Gillette put a lot of energy, and of course the entire staff in our district to get that going. And so you being here, Director Fortney, is a breath of fresh air in terms of being able to get through COVID and think about what's next. And so I look forward to, of course, being, a bigger part of that as a board member. But I do think that the health center has been running a very tight ship, the advisory board and, of course, the youth who run it. And I do know some of the people who work there, youth and young adults, college students and interns. And so seeing a staff of 16 to 17 people there, it reminds me, what my mom used to tell me about the hospital. And it just occurred to me that, doctors are essential to the work in healthcare, but nurses run the hospital.
Yep.
And it isn't for any reason, but the public being a part of that, because they're the clientele, they should be the drivers. So I would actually encourage, the Student Advisory Council and, of course, our board trustees and people who are involved in clubs on our campuses to take a larger role and have them be some of the drivers, really, so that when they report back to us as a board that we can make responsible decisions, because we're not healthcare providers. We're providing the opportunity for healthcare providers to serve in our community. So I'm looking forward to that. And I would note that if this is going to be an event where we are invited, it should be listed as a regular board meeting.
Right, that's the whole,
Okay.
that's why it's on here. That's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Yeah, it's important because I think people should know, too, that there are different roles in our community that we play, but a school district has a lot of responsibility in making sure we navigate it with other agencies in our community, especially the youth. So thank you for that.
I'm sorry?
Can I
Do
hear?
you have anything?
I think this is exactly what this health center should have been. I mean, I'm grateful for the vision that you and your team have for the next steps, and to really make this a fully comprehensive plan for each of our students, because oftentimes I live in Pacifica, and a lot of the community in Pacifica just don't think about the Daly City Youth Health Center because, Skyline Boulevard's like the line of death or something
Right.
like that, right? You just don't think about it. And so it's really just, it's really, I'm grateful that the idea of taking the services to the campuses is exactly what we need to do, and I look forward to being part of the discussion next week.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And this is the first time I've met you in person?
It is.
Goodness gracious. Wow.
Indeed.
It's good to see you. And the thought of a comprehensive, integrated healthcare system within our district, which is what exactly it should, this is what the growth that we've already, exhibited over the last year. I mean, we approve the hirings, and I keep saying, there's more people. This is awesome. But I don't know them, And I have actually referred people to Daly City Youth Health Center, people in our community who are afraid to go anywhere, because they're not documented, or, it's safe there. It's safe there. And so I don't know if they've actually gone, but I know a lot of people don't know it is part of our district, and we need to rectify that. And I really appreciate the vision. Yes, you have
I didn't want to
something?
cut you off, I just wanted to say one thing before you're done.
Okay. Well, now you've cut me off.
Sorry, Rosie. No, I just wanted to say, so I did.
So,
I
go
did
ahead.
I did ask the board if they would hold that date, because we would need to agendize it
Yes.
as a formal board meeting. I forget the time though, Jonathan, is it 4:30?
4:30.
Yep.
4:30. all.
And we would hold it here, or would we hold it there?
For this first one, there's a lot of mobility,
Okay,
especially with,
great.
the turbulence of our economy, and people that are working with us are traveling right now to take care of family. So with that being said, I believe it'd be safe, for everyone to hold it virtually. And, I'm gonna create the agenda. I just need to get approval before I send the agenda out, if we're all on board.
So it'll actually need to be a board agenda that is a district board agenda, so you
Great.
would work with Ms. Bell.
Great. I will
But
do
we
that.
are in person.
No,
That
we
is-
can still, so our regular board meetings are in person. This is not a
Right.
regular board meeting. Yeah, and we can hold special meetings.
Special board
virtually,
meeting, okay, that we don't, it doesn't have to be in person.
Right, because we're just declaring it a board meeting, because we've held board meetings at school sites. We don't have
Right.
to, be here to do it. Only our regular board meetings are held by the whatever, I can't remember what we approve.
Okay,
But normally, or for special board meetings, so we could do it so we could all be present, it doesn't have to be,
in person?
it doesn't have to be in person, because we've done that pre-COVID where we had a Zoom meeting.
Yes, actually.
Yeah, well, I
we
think it
did.
was for Brisbane or whatever, and we were all on there, and and the reason why we did that is because we all just couldn't get in the same place, and we wanted to have as many parents involved as possible, so there's precedent for us doing that in the past, so we're good.
Okay. All right.
Key takeaways from it are, USF, doctors in nursing and public health are gonna be presenting to us on their findings. And they're gonna be working with us over the next 3 to 5 years to create and develop our strategic plan they committed. And it's gonna be essential that the board and advisory are there to be able to help direct us so that we can meet your need. We're here for you. So, I'm excited.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good.
Just a reminder that we have to do 12C1.
Yes, understand that. On to action items.
Or we gotta-
Oh, I'm sorry, we have
9/7
rescheduled.
board meeting.
Okay, 14B1, Ms. Presta?
Thank you. So I wanted to, I noticed that we had scheduled a board meeting on Rosh Hashanah. So I wanted to at least bring it to the board's attention that it was scheduled for that date. And initially, I was gonna propose that we move the date. Now I'm just gonna open it up for discussion because there are a few things that we need to keep in account. So there is, we could perhaps schedule it for August 31st. However, there's a very important item on that September 7th board meeting, which is the unaudited actuals. And Ms. Van Raphorst didn't know that we were going to move this date. So she's going to need more time than August 31st to get the unaudited actuals on there. So she might be able to get an extension from the county to do those later. And, we may just want to note this and in the future, make sure not to schedule something on Rosh Hashanah. But I wanted to bring it up because it was brought to my attention and I didn't want
Can we hold a
to.
meeting on the 8th?
Could we hold it?
Sure, yeah,
the
it doesn't have
8th?
to be on a Tuesday, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
So
if
let's
that
look and
works
make sure that
for-
Rosh Hashanah, because I know it's a couple of days, so let's make sure that the 8th,
The 8th works.
I think it's the 7th and the 8th maybe, yeah.
Oh, is it 7th?
But we can look. But that's a good call, it doesn't have to be on a Tuesday.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
As a note too, I think, because we've run this before with Labor Day or MLK Day, in terms of scheduling meetings on federally recognized holidays and just holidays in general, I think that, we should be honoring
course.
and observing. I don't know that we have a board policy on that, but just in terms of calendaring, I think they would be mindful of us to make sure that we're doing that, being consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't schedule them on federal holidays.
No, we don't.
Sometimes there have been days, but yeah, generally we don't, yeah.
It ends on.
I think
on
we
the
held a
eighth.
special meeting on.
It ends at-
We had a
It ends
special
on the
meeting.
evening of September 8th.
If the ends on the evening of September
So let's
8th?
do the 9th?
Thursday the 9th.
Yeah, Thursday the 9th?
I'm better
14th.
Pardon me?
Or we could do the 14th if we wanted to keep it on a Tuesday.
I was gonna say Thursday nights I'm not available.
Okay.
But,
Okay, so we
I
have
could
a
do
meeting on the
Monday.
21st. You're not available, Mr. Ochapinti, on Thursday nights?
Thursdays?
Thursdays, no, yeah.
Okay.
The 14th is actually, I'm getting my dog fixed, so I think I need to be.
Oh,
gone that
my
night.
goodness.
I know, I've already rescheduled it.
Now it's all
once.
out there.
I've already rescheduled it once, I'm sorry.
What's your dog's name?
Yeah.
We just outed
Charlie.
your dog. Poor
Charlie's
Charlie,
going
it's
to the
on
hospital
blast.
that
Hope you're not watching, Charlie.
day.
Poor
She doesn't
Charlie.
know yet.
Charlie's got no privacy.
So,
Okay.
what about the 6th? Oh, it's the first day of
No, I
Rosh
can't.
Hashanah. Yeah, sorry, that's the hard.
Well, technically, because Rosh Hashanah ends at sundown on the 8th, we could probably get away with just doing that.
You're right, actually, sundown,
We should do it on Wednesday, the 8th.
Wednesday the 8th.
Sundown's, sundown's late.
Too late. Yeah, I think
No.
we should just probably stay away from the 8th.
Yeah, stay away
Okay.
from the 8th. And if Mr. Ochapinti doesn't, 9th won't work for
We do the
you.
following,
The
Monday?
14th.
Sorry?
We do the following Monday?
Or,
I
13th?
think that's a Daly City Council meeting.
okay.
yeah, we
let's do
can't
the-
do that.
Yeah, I can't do
We
that.
could just
The 14th.
cancel it and have the meeting on the 21st and get the extension from the county. I mean, you know, we've gotten extensions before when our meetings was, we're supposed to approve the unaudited actuals by the 15th. Sometimes our meeting falls on the 16th or the 17th, and they have allowed that. I haven't ever asked them for
That long of an
the
extension.
21st. But usually they say as long as I have the paperwork in by the 15th.
Well, I'm okay with the
The
14th.
14th is fine.
Yeah, and maybe we just scale back the agenda and make it,
I'm
because
just-
Ms. Prest is not available.
I'm
but-
not.
Oh,
That's when my dog is having surgery, and I'm supposed
Okay.
to be there with the dog. I'm
okay.
so sorry.
Well, it's
But I'm saying,
not
if
going to
we,
be a
if we
full
scale
board
back the
meeting.
agenda, we might be able
Yeah,
to have a
if
meeting
we just
without
do
Ms.
a-
Presta.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we are canceling the 7th. It is going to be a regular board meeting on the 14th.
Can we do a scale back agenda for the 13th, for that Monday?
That's a Daly City Council meeting.
Can't do that.
We can't have two meetings in the same night.
We sure can, but I think that we're planning on being at that council meeting.
If multiple board members are planning on being at that meeting and speaking on an item, we should notify the public that we will also be there and jointly do that, if that's possible.
I don't understand.
If multiple, I mean, if members of the board can't make a board meeting, but
I'm not
instead
sure
of,
if board members are not going. I know I was planning on going, and. so I
or
don't-
any board members planning on attending the September 13th city council meeting? Okay, so if that's already two people and anybody else goes, that should be notified as a public, as a board meeting, or some kind of joint meeting. I believe it's a process
Not
for
a
that.
joint meeting.
No.
Not joint meeting, but there should be, we should be noticing that we're going to be there.
Well,
more than
the
two
whole point is that if two board members are at an outside meeting, no other board members can go. That's
Or
usually-
speak.
Right, that's the law for Brown Act, but
Not exactly, but slightly, yeah, most of the time. I would say this is, if multiple board members are prioritizing a city council meeting instead of our board meeting for that day, or just for whatever reason, that we should look at the process and see how we can notify that multiple board members will be attending another meeting. And you can do that as long as you're not commenting, or not, if you're submitting public comment, for example,
You don't need to.
that's not,
That's not how it
The discussion
works.
has just simply been, we're going to have a regularly scheduled school board meeting.
Yeah.
And we propose a date of September 14th.
Yeah.
And Ms.
Right.
Van Rapport indicated that we should probably just do a scaled back agenda since Ms. Presta would be unable to attend. And so it would probably be just the unaudited
Audited
financials and probably a handful of other items, more than likely personnel and a
Right.
few other things. So it should be a very short meeting relative to what we would typically have
Yeah.
on the 7th. The whole reason for this discussion is because we want to cancel the 7th because of the Rosh Hashanah holiday.
And I can't make the 13th anyway.
yeah, that's very clear. I was making point of clarification because the issue was raised that there's a city council meeting, but that doesn't affect our board business if we're not attending that meeting.
Well,
So if people are planning on attending that meeting, then
well,
as a point of
it
clarification.
is board
for future
business.
reference- For
Well,
future reference, we should be clear on this, because I've been at meetings where other board members have shown up and even been presenters at the meeting,
Right.
which, without public notice, nobody else can know, not even myself necessarily. So, to be clear on, make sure we're not violating the Brown Act, that if, for example, I submit a public comment to that meeting, but then two other board members appear there and then discuss this district business, there could appear to be a Brown Act violation, at least people who are not clear on what's happening. So I'm asking because if I'm going to that meeting as well and I see two other board members, whoever they are, we all have a right to be there, but we cannot, more than two of us, discuss openly business unless you're
Right.
stating a public comment that you've already submitted. So for clarification, for future reference, how are we notifying the city council? Because there are issues that are going to come before them, and certainly ones we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
That's really not an item that's on this agenda.
No, this is-
The only thing we're discussing is whether we're scheduling a regularly scheduled board meeting
Right.
to September 14th, and we're not considering Monday, September 13th as the date of said meeting because of a calendar conflict.
I think you missed my point exactly.
No, I know, I got your
Yeah.
point.
Okay,
Mr.
hold on,
But
hold on.
I'm-
I'm gonna have to use my authority as president. The item on, the discussion item here is the rescheduling of the September 7th meeting.
Sure.
So that's what we're discussing only, and that is that we're, I can't do the 13th. I can do the 14th. So I'm just saying, I cannot do the 13th. I can do the 14th.
Yeah, nobody's
You
arguing
know?
that. yeah.
So if, does everybody else can do the 14th?
I'm fine with
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, you can?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll just move it to the 14th.
Thank you.
You will not be there.
I may not attend, I might find a dog sitter.
But it'll probably be, we're in agenda planning, will probably be a scaled back.
Because we'll have a
scaled
meeting
back.
the next week. so
Exactly,
we
we'll
know
have
that
a
we can
meeting in the
have a
next
more
week.
robust meeting that
Yeah,
next week.
and-
Thank you so much.
Yes, and so for the student trustees, if you can make it on the 14th, that'd be great. Whoever's going to be here, you can talk to your your partner. But if you can't, it's going to be a scaled back meeting, so no pressure since we're changing the date.
Okay, now on to action items. And we will start with, what's that?
Sorry, we're adding that 12C.
The 12.
Yes.
12C11 item to discussion that Mr. Ojibwe.
No,
I
it's an
think it
action
actually should have been
item.
action.
It's an action
Yeah,
item.
I'm
So
discussion.
we're moving on to the action item.
Thank you.
And we'll start with the 12C11, change order number 8, J.H. Fitzmaurice, Inc. And Mr. Ochapente pulled that. Is, what questions do you have, and, or any clarification, Mr. Ochapente?
Yeah, so firstly, the change order. So let me just make sure I'm clear on this. Which portable are they referring to? So the public can know.
So,
Thank you. Ms.
Okay,
Phillips
Ms.
came
Phillips
too,
will-
Just in case.
So, yeah, so which portable, just for the public to know, what portable did not have existing drawings on our campus?
The southwest corner, I think it's noted that in the item.
Okay,
So,
just,
Right
yeah.
there?
Okay, just so for clarification, this is the portable that we're demolitioning because it's dilapidated, it's blighted, basically.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to point that out because I know we discussed this before when we were preparing to demolition it, and I did request that either an insurance agency or some agency investigate what the conditions were around that building and the safety guidelines for demolishing it, and that there had to be some kind of paperwork or something around that. I know we discussed it as a board at a regular meeting. I'm not sure if you were there or not, but it says here is an unforeseen issue. I guess my question is, why was it unforeseen, and why did the contractor not have any existing drawings before demolishing a building?
It was unforeseen because it wasn't on the drawings.
They did have
And-
drawings.
And the drawings didn't show this pipe because this was a repair that was done after talking to our site foreman a while back. He couldn't tell me how long, but it was a while back. So there was a repair that was done, and there's no drawings for the repair. And so that repair had the pipe going above ground and underneath the portable.
Okay, now I'm not disputing your explanation, I'm asking because last time this was brought up, there was a lot of, I guess, different opinions on whether or not we should have any kind of investigation of what's going on with the portable and the conditions around it, OSHA guidelines, whatever it was. And I was concerned because something like this might happen, which it did. So my concerns were, first of all, because it's on our campus and we have a preschool right next to it, and of course the workers and their safety, but secondly, obviously, because the property and those are fire water lines. So for me, I'm just kind of finding it hard to understand why, if I asked before for like some kind of investigation around the conditions of that portable and the things around it, why that documentation wasn't on hand for even the workers doing the work.
Nick, the pipe was broken underground, okay? We had to dig out. In fact, I have a bunch of pictures. Can you play the,
Yeah.
start from the number one? So it was, we were flooded,
Yeah.
okay? So this was something that happened underground. This wasn't something that anybody could foresee, okay? There's no drawings. This is something that broke underground, okay? No insurance agent is gonna come out here and be able to tell you that your pipe is gonna break, okay? So
Sure.
I don't know where you're going with this, but this is not, that, keep
Yeah.
playing the, so this is a really long day for me, okay? I
Imagine.
stayed here until 8 o'clock that night,
Thank you for your
buttoning it
work.
up.
Thank you for that. I
All right?
appreciate that.
Because I wanted to make sure that we had fire suppression at this building before I left,
Thank you for that.
okay? So this change order was for them to do work on a T&M and come out here on an emergency at that time and get it done. So, I mean, you see, there's a lot of people out here working.
Yeah.
They had, like, it was not something that I could walk away from that night and just leave.
Stephanie, respectfully, this is why I asked before at the prior meeting, so that you and the workers wouldn't have to be in a situation like this where there was something unforeseen, right?
Yeah.
So please understand this, because I feel a little hostility in the way you're approaching me on this, and I just want to be clear.
I'm sorry. This is
Is that what you're
going,
gonna do? No,
I'm
no, hold on.
sorry?
Are you gonna censor me? Is that what you're doing?
Am I gonna censor you?
Are you using the gavel for something?
I'm trying to get attention. That's what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So, this is not a good place.
What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, we have to treat each other with respect and
Right.
have respect in our voices.
Right.
Now, as to the change order itself, it's a very specific question. As you can see, it was an unforeseen issue. So as to the change order itself, are there any questions you have as to the change order alone?
So.
Not about-
You're putting Director Phillips in a very strange position, because she had to
Sorry?
fix this, and the workers had to fix this at their own health risk during a pandemic. I asked before, at a prior meeting, for unforeseen issues to be addressed, and I was told that there was nothing that could be, nothing that we need to do to investigate prior to demolishing the building. This happened. So putting them at risk is my concern, and this is why I'm asking why it was unforeseen. She may not have the answer, and I understand that. My question is, where is the documentation on a fire line? Does the city have it? Do we have it? Was it ever documented, ever?
There is no documentation. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was a repair. Sometimes when you do a repair out there,
Yeah.
you don't just make drawings or an as-built of it, okay? There was no way that we would have known that again,
Yeah.
that there was that a pipe was gonna break underground.
Yes, Ms. Salahuddin?
I'm sorry if I'm being frustrated, all right?
I
But
understand.
I don't understand how you can't understand that.
Well, I can tell you this.
Can I have because you've been talking for a
No,
minute.
I want to
No,
respond to, she asked the question.
Just a moment, I have the floor here.
Go for it.
I'm going to allow Ms. Salahuddin to speak.
If I could, please, just for a sec. So I think the definition of unforeseen issue is that it's unforeseen, right? So I don't know specifically who we could have called to come out here to foresee something that is unforeseen, that is not on any existing drawings per the documentation that we were given. And I don't see the productivity of arguing the point after the fact. You may well be right. Maybe there was something that we could have done, but it's hard for me to sit and watch a staff member very frustrated in what's feeling like a cross-examination. So I'm wondering, well, I mean,
It does feel like that to me, Nick. It does.
I'll wait to respond, but please finish.
so, especially, calling, it just feels like a constant attack and calling our staff members' integrity and their work ethic in question, when I know Stephanie did everything in her power to make sure that she's safe, that her staff is safe. But sometimes things are unforeseen. And so this specific agenda item is on the change order to pay for the work that is done and needs to be done. So I don't know how much time I want to spend on the issue of what could have been done to prevent it, when I don't think anything could have been done to prevent something that no one could predict.
Correct.
So quickly, I'll respond to that, because I want to
Quickly.
respond to Director Phillips. Yeah. One, sorry if you feel that way. I hope you're not directing your frustration towards me. I actually was trying to get ahead of the situation before the demolition even began at a board meeting. I tried to create some foreseeable information so that you would have that information to work with. But if that information simply does not exist, then I understand that's just the way it is. I just find it hard to believe in terms of construction and city planning how that could not exist. But that I don't fault you for at all. So sorry you feel attacked. I'm not attacking you, and I will also urge fellow board members to not characterize what I'm doing as attacking when I'm asking questions. Our job is to ask questions. And my question, to be specific, is about why our contractor did not do their whatever due diligence they could have done so that we're getting charged for something that then maybe they could have foreseen or researched beforehand. So that's my question and why I'm asking.
I see that's your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
That is not what we're voting on here.
This is a change
This
order.
is this is the work that had to be done, the emergency work that had to be done, and we are here to approve paying them for it.
Right.
So the change order, that's it.
That's my question is why are we paying for it if that was something they could have done in advance?
But it could not have been, and that is what she is saying. So
understand
that
what
we
she's
are
saying.
spending a lot of time on this, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, and is there anything you'd like to add?
I would like to make a motion to approve this change order.
Okay, so
Second.
all in favor, or roll call vote. Ms. Bell?
Trustee Occhionzi?
Aye.
Trustee Serramonte?
Aye.
Vice President Lee?
Aye.
President Tejada?
Aye. Ms. Phillips?
Okay, so.
I just want to thank you so much for all your hard work, and I know that you've put in an enormous lift for our entire district. And that is just, that's not even the top of what you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. Next action item. 15A1, approval of the 2021-2022 instructional materials. Ms. Baca?
President Tejada, good evening, members of the board. Tonight before you is the list of instructional materials and textbooks for the 21-22 school year. And for this year, there has been one newly adopted textbook, and it's for AP US History called Give Me Liberty. And everything else is pretty much the same. So it is my recommendation that this board approve the instructional materials for 21-22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
15A2, JUHSD BP 6145A, extracurricular and co-curricular activities. Ms. Besuino?
President Tejada, members of the board. So I'm just bringing this back to you. As you remember, you graciously approved this extracurricular, co-curricular board policy last year due to COVID to try to help our athletes and those who participate in extracurricular activities. We are hoping that you will extend it through this school year. That's the only change we put on the board policy, is that it would go through this school year to help support our students. And so we are recommending that you approve this board policy.
Motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Favor?
Aye.
15B1, job description. Oh, wait, yeah. Board Certified Behavior Analyst, BCBA.
Yeah.
Making sure I wasn't going over the other one that we deleted.
Thank you, President Tejada, and good evening, members of the board. So before you this evening is a new job description. It is a position for a board-certified behavior analyst. This position is one that we currently contract out for, so by approving the job description, it would enable us to bring on our own employee.
Fantastic. Move to approve item 15B1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 15B2, day certificated salary schedule update side letter. Ms. Lujan.
Thank you, President Tejada, and good evening, everyone, again. So this is a small change to the salary schedule. What it does is it strikes out the language BA plus 30 under Class 1, as well as the language Step 4 is the maximum step for BA plus 30. In onboarding teachers who have their career technical education credential, we realize that they don't qualify. Sometimes they come into becoming a CTE teacher without following the traditional teacher pathway. In addition, interns sometimes, in onboarding them, we want to be able to place them appropriately.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Se- All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're no longer doing 15B3. On to 15C1. Ms. Van Raphorst on resolution number 2021-23/3.
Thank you, President Tejada. I am excited to bring before the board tonight the next step in our quest to build a new district office and new adult school building. If you recall, way back to August of 2020, the JUHSD board voted unanimously at that time to approve a contract with David J. Powers and Associates to conduct an environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act, which is commonly referred to as CEQA. So before the board tonight is the result of that work. It's a resolution that, if adopted, would adopt the findings and mitigation measures of the environmental review and approve the project. So in addition to our Director of Construction, Stephanie Phillips, I think she just stepped out for a minute to see if our guest from David J. Powers is.
Yeah, it looks like he's still speaking, but
Okay.
I just texted him to let him know.
Okay, so Ms. Phillips is here, as well as Clarissa Kennedy, who is our legal counsel from Dennis Willover Kelly. And they're here tonight to answer questions about the process, and then as soon as Coney Danielson from David J. Powers gets off his other meeting, he'll be over here. But before the board tonight, like I said, the resolution would adopt the findings and approve the project. Are there questions?
Mr. Ochapinti.
Yeah, I do. I just want to honor the time of people who are here to present on it or speak on it, so as soon as they're available.
You have, I think if you ask your questions, we may be able to answer them.
Yeah, I would like to hear from everybody, but I guess my first question, yeah. So my first comment is, we had a meeting on June 15th where we discussed some of the first times that the outlines were presented, and for me, my primary concerns, as with all and many projects we undertake in our district, is the involvement of our community and public input and public comment. And so, given that we are still navigating a pandemic and a lot of community has not had the opportunity, I raised that issue at the meeting, and it was assured that we would have that opportunity, yet we haven't had that yet. So I'm surprised to see this on our agenda tonight. And I was surprised to see that the 30-day comment period has already started and ended before the summer was over. I understand there are timelines and things, but public input is a critical part of any planning development. And so I would ask for an extension of public comment period so that people who live around Westmore Park, who haven't been reached, people who live in our community district-wide, would have some input on what's going on. And I have some concerns that I've voiced around the environment and maybe requesting an EIR instead of an MND, which I still feel is necessary. But all of those things haven't had time to be discussed in our community, this after all the first meeting of our school year. So I'm asking that and what people's thoughts are on that first.
Are you asking us what our thoughts are on extending the process?
The deadline for, and the process for the public comment period, because it was very premature and very quick. It was in the summer, it lasted a month apparently, and now it's over before the school year started. So I don't feel like there's been adequate time to get that input. I certainly don't have that information as a trustee, so I'm wondering what people's thoughts are on extending that time period so that we could.
Well, I think that's a question to your fellow board members.
Actually, I
So-
wanted to hear the input from those working on the project first, and David J. Power, since they did the.
If they can extend it?
No, well, I want to hear
time
their
to
thoughts on it
report?
first, and then, of course, decision-wise.
We
that's a
did
board
follow the standard procedures.
Yes.
So that's what I can tell you, is we did the community outreach to the neighborhood and did the public posting as required.
So did we hear back from anybody in the community?
We only got one comment, and that was from a Daly City staff member.
A City of Daly City employee?
Yes.
We don't have any input from the community at large.
Well, they had an opportunity to comment. We did not receive any comments. That's correct.
Any thoughts on how we can extend that timeline, maybe so we can get some of the input from the neighborhoods?
I would not recommend extending the timeline. It would push off our timeline on completing the new district office, and it would cost more money. So I would not recommend that.
Cost more money. But you said that.
We
you
did
know,
follow all the
We had followed
proce-
all the procedures, the proper procedures in coming to this point. So there was ample opportunity for the public to comment. And this was published online, and anyone who could have commented appeared here to comment on this as well.
Correct, and
And
it was
further-
published at the site as well.
Okay. Okay. So, yes.
Just in having read through most of the document over the weekend, most of the 500 pages, it's pretty clear that it's very comprehensive and that any of the major issues that needed to be addressed are certainly addressed in the scope, considering that Powers and Associates also had several sub-consultants who specialize in very specific trades or in very specific areas to help draft up the report. To see Powers' summary backed up by their consultants' reports made it very clear to me that everything appears to be addressed, all the primary concerns, since these are the folks who do this for a living.
Right, and that we contracted them to do this. Do we have any other comments from Ms. Alahuddin?
I had some tea and deep dived into all 571 pages, and again, it was a very thorough report. It was broken down in a way that was easy to follow, even though there was a lot of information, and clearly indicated areas where there was low impact and areas where there may be some impact and there was going to be need for mitigation. So all of that was very helpful for me in planning for when we do the build out and we are talking about the construction, what we need to do in very specific areas to be mindful of the community and also to be mindful of the environment, wildlife, et cetera. So I know that those concerns have been taken into account in our previous construction. They've been taken into account in what we're doing here. We delayed construction here because of wildlife issues, et cetera. And so, I'm glad that we have this as guidance to move forward. And community input, this has been an ongoing thing. Everyone has something mailed to them. There was things posted. It's been online. If there are other ways or suggestions that you have for us to reach out to the community on these items, I welcome the suggestions. But to me, this is, the cost of, we don't have a lot of money to spend. We need to be really efficient in the way we use our money. And I don't want to hold up an item for something that may or may not generate more feedback. And this will be an ongoing conversation with the community, because we'll have much more output and outreach when we do different facets of the building. So I'm fine with moving forward at this point, and I'm very happy with the report as it was done. And I'm excited to get this thing going. I'm really excited for our new DO.
I agree. I mean, I don't think I did as thorough a dive as you did, but I was really, I was really impressed with how thorough it was. All the different, boy, it just dove into everything. I have a greater appreciation of what pollutants can do, and that we are mindful of all of these things. So I would like to move on and call for a motion. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, I still have comments. I'm still curious if our associate here from David J. Powers or whoever would like to speak.
Well, do you have a
Are they
question?
still outside waiting, or?
No, he's on a Zoom with another city right now.
He's trying to fit us in.
He's wrapping it up. He just sent me a text. He's in the blue room right now, and he's wrapping it up. So do you have a specific question that you want to ask him?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, it's over 500 pages. Again, my primary concern is that even as board members, if it's just 5 of us, 4 of us, reviewing it with the district who's worked on this, that's certainly valuable and can determine things, but I'm not sure it should. I feel like if we've had 0 members of our community outside of a city staff employee, which to me doesn't really necessarily count given the process for the most part, that we should really, for the interest of our district, seek community input before we declare this. And one of my questions has to do with the trees. Has been a recurring question I've had since the very beginning. In the very beginning,
Is there a specific question regarding the trees?
You have a specific question about the trees?
I have various questions about the trees, but
What are they?
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, hold on. I'll get to that. So my first concern is this project originally started as just an adult school, our adult school moving to the Westmore campus. That was the original. And then the idea came about through a discussion that hasn't really happened at a board meeting that we should be building the district office in tandem with it at Westmore Park. Now, my primary concern is Westmore Park is a park. It's a green space and an open space. And the city of Daly City leased it, apparently for generations, from our district. I wasn't even aware of that when I joined the board. So that we had a space and a green space that wasn't being utilized is my first concern, but that's a city discussion because somebody there, or the council came to a decision somehow and they didn't want to use it anymore. This was brought to the attention, I think it was 5 years ago, maybe, more or less. They stopped.
I'd have to look it up.
It was about
I think
that,
it
though.
was.
They decommissioned it about 5 years ago.
And we, as a
And then
board.
it became a problem for us. I know it was a real problem for Director Peppers, because it was a place where kids would like to go and hang out and do bad things. So they had
And
actually built
vandalism that we have to.
like forts in there to do bad things. So it was becoming a problem for us to maintain. I know we reached out to the city, I personally did, trying to get them to help us get rid of things and that were there, because now it's become a liability for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just kind of washed their hands of it, unfortunately, because they were.
We're also strapped.
Also strapped, so.
But, and also, this discussion came up when we as a board voted to take the land back, because we had to do another MOU to take the land back, to repurpose the land. And there was discussion then about the potential of using the land. The purpose of taking it back was to use the land for the DO. We were always, so just to clarify, the discussion was to add the adult school to where the DO was. It was this discussion wasn't all of a sudden we decided to put the DO there, because the DO was gonna have to move because we were doing the redevelopment of this building. So where did, the DO was going somewhere, was always going to that space.
Not my understanding, no. The
No,
original
it
contract.
was.
That's, where did you think the
So
deal was
where-
going?
Let me explain to you something. So one, this district office, under contract with Brookwood Advisors, they were supposed to find a way to redevelop it. My understanding was going to be rebuilt here with whatever other spaces where our current vendors, use. And this already generates revenue, this district office. And another development people might not know about is part of Del Rey, are this apartment complex and the medical building just behind Summit Shasta Public Schools. Those are our property. So me coming on board realizing that our district's already making money off things is one thing. So my understanding when this entire development came to be was that we were going to rebuild the office here. The understanding that the adult school would be at Westmore Park on the tennis courts, which are already paved areas. That was the original design that I saw. The only time we reviewed this as a board was recently, fully, to approve that or not. And just to provide direction on it, this is an approval of MND, which I was not in favor for. I was in favor of a full environmental impact report because my concern is specifically, first of all, these green spaces are not just open spaces for parks and rec. I used to work for the rec, so I understand. When we have some of the youth I used to work with would go to the park and would be bored. They might get into things that they shouldn't do, right? So they should have programs there, but since they've left that, it's up to us to understand how we navigate green spaces and open spaces for community benefit. And so if we're moving our district offices to district land, that does make sense, and that's why I've been in support of a large part of that. However, my concern remains, if we're doing that, it's going to erase the entire green space there, and only trails and things that behind buildings, like only preserving that is a very minimal standard of preserving space, because if that happens and there's going to be a luxury apartment complex development here, what happens to all the green space of Westmore Park? We effectively removed a lot of open space for recreational activities and educational activities, and we removed a lot of green space, which isn't being replaced. So there's a very real environmental concern in the balance of this, because to me it looks a little odd to move everything off of Del Rey into Westmore Park and then to just sell off Serramonte Del Rey or lease it for 99 years, whatever it is, to private developers. So that my concern rests in, if Westmore Park is going to be the home for our new district office and for an adult school, there should also be a space for green space and open space either there or here at Del Rey, because it's imbalanced. We can't just sell off our property that way. Our schools are not for sale, and Westmore Park, being part of Westmore High School, counts. We grew up here. So my concern with this report is it's not complete without community input, and we need that input. So I'm asking for an extension of timeline. I'm encouraging my fellow board members to consider that, to consider our community as part of this process.
We have considered our community part of this process. The process is ongoing. So there will be other opportunities for the community to get involved and for us to hear from them. If you have ways to reach beyond what we've done, which I believe has been pretty thorough, and then Ms. Salahuddin has been, several people have been going door to door. So the question here is about the resolution to adopt this declaration. And so you said, now, the report itself,
Yes.
it lays out how much green space there is, how many parks are available in Daly City, et cetera. Now, you said that you had a concern about trees. That is part of this report. If you have a concern about what is in this report,
Yeah.
aside from community input, what are your questions about the trees?
Well, one of the presenters is still not available, so I'm still waiting for that. But I mean, honoring the time of everybody else who's here, my first question is, in reading that, a lot of our trees at the park do look healthy. They were listed as in being in poor condition. Even a tree in poor condition still has a lot of decades to live. And the impact of those trees being older trees, even if we don't have a heritage ordinance in our city, which we should, because the county does too, and it is existing laws, best practices. Even if we can technically just bulldoze all those trees, why would we do that when those are an asset to our community and our district?
We're not bulldozing all those trees. It says we're only removing 6 trees, and
Right.
we're planting 61.
So saplings, young trees, don't sequester as much carbon as
Right, but we're
fully grown
not, but
trees. There's
just,
not-
but the
it's not equal
point is that we're
comparison.
not bulldozing. We're only cutting down 6 trees, and we're planting 61.
So my concern is primarily this, is one, green spaces and open spaces and the imbalance of the development and the pace and trajectory of this district-wide, which this is a part of. There's no question about that. That's absolutely something the community needs to be a part of, because you can't just approve one thing and then the other and say, well, we already went with one, so the domino effect is we have to lean in on it. There has not been ample time for this, to be clear. There was a month in the summer during COVID while rates were spiking with the Delta variant, and going door to door during a pandemic is not necessarily the best idea health-wise, I think, for anybody. But I would say, secondly, if we have literally 0 community members outside of a city employee chiming in on this, then we haven't collected that input. We haven't done our due diligence.
No, it's okay. The question is, how should we go about getting community input? Could you give me a specific example of how you would like us to get community input?
Sure, here's an idea. I don't have the first, last, or final, whatever determination on that, because the community should have their own ways to be able to get in touch with us however they can,
So you
too.
do not have an idea?
That's not what I said.
Okay, so what is the idea?
So, first of all, you need to give people time, and second of all, you got to give them space. Right now, we're in a pandemic. To be able to have to expect community to come to board meetings, whether virtually or physically, or even to admit people to their home and open the door to them during the pandemic, is not an ideal time. We had somebody mention this earlier. It's not 2019. We can't play by those rules. It's
You keep telling
2021.
us what not to do. I get that. What do you want us to do? What should we be doing?
First of all, it would be responsible for us to extend this timeline because there's no way we could have completed this with our own due diligence without any community input to this point.
Right,
There
so
are-
if we extend the timeline, how do you want, if we extend the timeline
Right.
and you don't want us to communicate in all these ways, what is the point of extending the timeline if we can't communicate? How would you like us to communicate if we extend the timeline? What would you like us to do in that extended period?
So, firstly, I'm not saying that talking to people is not important. I'm not saying that reaching them wherever they're at is not important. What I'm saying is there's a time, place for everything. To do something like this requires a level of proximity for our public to feel comfortable voicing their voices. And I should note, too, that I've seen on social media elected officials, even on this board, unsolicitedly respond to community members in a way that attacks them and actually puts out their personal information. To me, that's not only unsettling, there's a chilling effect of that mutes and silences the voices in our community.
You're not answering my question.
I am. I will say this is, bless you,
Bless you.
that if we're going to approach this responsibly, then we need to extend the deadline, firstly. Secondly, we can do community meetings, and we should be doing it the way that we would normally do it pre-pandemic, but we can't. We have to do it a little bit differently. So doing more outreach this semester, hopefully the Delta variant will slow down. Hopefully COVID will slow down. We don't know that will happen for sure. But we need to make sure that our students have an opportunity to have say in that, a real opportunity. We have students who go to Westmore. We have students who went to Westmore. We have community who care about our park. And as one of them, and as a Westmore alum, for me, this is just common sense. And I would expect
You
everybody.
haven't given us a clear, I've asked clearly, what would you like us to do differently than what we already done, besides extending the time? So if we extend the time, that means we're extending the time to take some sort of communication action. What is that specific communication action that you would like us to take that we haven't already done?
We have never held public community forums for the public to have this input on anything over the last
You
even
don't want
months.
us to do anything over Zoom.
I didn't say that.
You did say that.
I
You
did not
said
say
that
that.
in the COVID cases and people don't show up to Zoom.
No, I'm saying the expectation of them to have to be able to show up and have that pressure, especially this summer. And the summer is the one time a year when most of our community is disengaged from either school or politics. And the last year or two may be an exception, but it has been a lot of pressure. And that we have this on our plate is a very important discussion, and it involves Delray as well. So, including the garden, which has been a huge
We're
point of
only
contention.
talking about this, though.
Yes, but this is related because our district office is the building we're sitting in right now. And this is what's going to be transported over there. If possibly, if it happens, it would need the input of our community to feel comfortable with that and to want to support that. And if they don't, then we should know
organize
that.
that community meeting?
Like I said, I'll be more than willing to do that, but I feel like we should extend timeline so that we can do that before
Okay.
approving anything here tonight.
Mr. Lee,
All right. And just a couple of quick things. With regards to the district office at Westmore Park, we've been discussing the location of the district office at Westmore Park since 2019. And very specifically, on November 5th, 2019, this body approved the issue, placing a bond measure on the March 3rd, 2020 ballot for $28 million, which specifically is for the construction of said district office. And that passed by a vote of 5-0. So quite frankly, to say that you have not been aware of this location of Westmore Park, Mr. Archipinti, is quite disingenuous. And so I'm going to leave it at that. The matter that's in front of us right now is whether we would approve the CETWA report provided by Mr. Powers and Associates.
I'm going to respond to that really quickly. Thank you, Vice President Lee, for putting out some information. I want to be clear because that is not what I said, and you're being disingenuous about how you're responding to what I said. what I said was this, is our community has not been able to address these issues at a public, regular board meeting, which is where we hold court on these issues.
That is not what he was addressing.
No, he was saying
He was
something that I had-
addressing what your knowledge of this
Can't-
project
so-
was.
So, yes, respectfully,
So
this, so, no, this is important.
Okay,
This is
my
important.
goodness.
My goodness, what's going on?
Let's move on
We
with
can't just
this.
move, he
So
made an
if
assertion that's
you-
not true. It's actually not true.
I will allow you to address it briefly.
I was not referring to my knowledge and discussions. What we do as a board publicly is either we take action in closed or open session. And the only thing I can address with the public that we make decisions on, that we as a board can make decisions on, are issues that come before a regular board meeting. If the public has not had a chance to do that at a regular board meeting, and if those plans aren't publicly presented, then we are not making a decision. If no action was taken, that means it never happened. Because if a discussion happens anywhere, it doesn't mean a decision's been made. And that's why our role as a board is important, because we conduct district business at public meetings. So if the public hasn't had an opportunity at any prior meeting, whatever, pick a year, this year is the first time we've formally seen Serramonte Del Rey and Westmore Park's presentations. And I have voted against both in various ways because I don't feel like public has had an input on it. And during a pandemic, it is
Okay.
highly inappropriate to do this.
Okay,
You
Ms.
you
Salavudin.
said at this, you're saying this is the first meeting. You said you referenced previous meetings where we talked about building the district office at Westmore Park. So we have had public board meetings. We had a public board meeting where the full, all the specs and all the projections of what the district office was gonna look like, and we clearly stated that it was at Westmore Park, and it was a publicly agendized meeting that community members could have come to. So we have had that. You're saying we haven't had it, and we absolutely have.
That was June 15th, and that was the first thing I mentioned before this entire thing. So I did mention it. I was the first to mention
Right,
it.
but you just said we haven't had a public meeting so they could address it. I'm saying we have had a public meeting, and the public, community, members of the public could have come at that time here to talk about it if they wanted to.
Which just, I'll finish quickly, just to respond to that, that's my entire point from the beginning, is announcing on June 15th during the reopening of our state, and at the end of the school year, beginning of summer school, is not an appropriate time to make decisions like this about our school district when we know people aren't going to be able to show up. And even if they can, how are they going to have the time to even focus on this when they're trying to keep a roof over their heads and get through things when we're looking at our district as real estate? It's completely inappropriate.
So I've heard you.
Yes, thank you.
I've heard you.
Yes,
So we are doing the business of the district right now.
right.
So if you have a specific question about the SEQA report that you want to ask David J. Powers and Associates, they're here.
Thank you for joining us. I know that you had other engagements.
Sorry.
No worries. I understand. So I've had several concerns. I don't know if you were able to catch most of it prior to joining us, but primary among them is this. This is a long document. There's a lot of work has gone into this document. A lot of work has gone into this project from the district staff, from your agency as well. We're developing two different things, right? There's something at Serramonte Del Rey. Involved is the garden. It's a point of contention. You may be aware of that. Your agency is also working on that. At Westmore Park, we also have green space and open space. My primary concern is one that even before we have a discussion and make decisions, we should be involving a larger community input. Technically, we've covered the timeline, the period of a public comment period of a month. However, that was done after our June 15th meeting. So my question is this. Would you encourage, and can we, without incurring any more expenses this way, at least in consideration of what you're doing, extend the timeline so the community has an actual chance to have input on this process, people who live in the Westmore Park area and in our district-wide area, so that we can have full community input on what this report means, what it says about the trees in the area, which trees are being potentially torn down, what we're going to do with the green space, everything that the report addresses, which is not just specific. It's over 500 pages.
Actually not his decision
Right.
whether to extend it. So he's here to answer the technical aspects of the CEQA. So
Right.
if you have a specific question about that, he's more than willing to answer that. But he's not here to say that whether we can extend it or not. That's,
Because our staff, Ms. Van Raphorst, has already said at this meeting she would not advise that, and for the reasons she stated. So do you have a particular question about the CEQA?
My question is, what kind of input do you usually seek from communities that goes into your reports? And in this report specifically, what input from the community went into this report, at any part of it? That's my first question.
So the CEQA process is something undertaken by a public agency, so the analysis is supposed to reflect the agency's independent judgment and analysis. So in this case, the district staff is charged with doing that work for the district. The district doesn't normally do this type of work, so they hire a consultant, and so they hired us. I've been doing this for 24 years. I've worked on hundreds of projects, and I will say this project is typical of a redevelopment of a site that's surrounded by other housing or other developed uses. As far as what sort of public participation, the environmental process, the state law CEQA, does facilitate public process by allowing for a public comment period. When a project qualifies for what's called an initial study mitigated negative declaration, which is what the document was here, the state law requires that the agency circulate that document for 30 days, and so that's what was done. You might be familiar with the other project that you mentioned where the city of Daly City is the lead agency, is preparing an EIR, and that's a process that has a couple additional public noticing requirements to go with it because it's a more complicated process. This site, this project, doesn't need to go through that same process. It's not as complicated, it's not as consequential on its merits. And so for that reason, the document is put out for public review, and we see what we get. In this case, we did not get a lot of comments. The comment that was received was from the city of Daly City, the traffic engineering staff. They had fairly routine coordination issues about traffic conditions and the way that the project interfaces with city streets. The document circulated public review. If the public doesn't respond, that's their opportunity under the law.
My second question is this. With regards to the arborist report, a lot of trees were marked as in poor condition, or rated like 2 out of 5. I've been to the park. The trees look very healthy, but I'm not an arborist. So can you tell me exactly why they would be graded that low and maybe marked for being removed? The ones I'm referring to specifically are the ones in the field between the tennis courts and the playground. They're just outside of left field from the Sandlot baseball field.
Unfortunately, I'm not an arborist either. So our firm, again, this environmental document touches on 20 different topics, 20 different environmental topics, one of which is biology, which would cover trees. And so we hired a professional arborist who did their report. And so it's their analysis, their assessment of the condition of the trees. And I can't speak to why they scored one tree as a 2 versus a 4. That's just their assessment of those trees after looking at trees for decades as part of their work. So I can't speak to why a particular tree was rated the way it was.
I guess my follow-up question to that, thank you for the information. My follow-up question to that is, given that those trees will be considered heritage trees if we had a heritage ordinance in this city, do you feel like it's valuable to maintain those trees in the interest of the environment and its impacts? Because you said, as an MND, a mitigated negative declaration, you said there's an expected lower impact, like there's not a serious situation going on. Just looking at the news and watching the news today and looking at climate change, we know that trees are some of the most sophisticated technology we could hope for, especially heritage trees. And so do you see any way we can preserve those trees, despite the minimal standards of our city's governance or around the environment? Do you see any way we can retain those trees in the interest of what's being planned?
The purpose of the study was to evaluate the effects of the project as it's proposed, to see whether they're significant and whether they warrant mitigation or alternatives. And so again, it wasn't our task to answer your questions. And really, we look to see, are the trees being removed? Are they significant? Do they require mitigation? And as you noted, this project is located in Daly City. And so again, the district doesn't normally undertake projects that require secret review. You don't have your own policies for things like tree preservation and building construction, right? That's not your normal mission. So in that situation, the district appropriately looked to the city of Daly City to see what sort of policy framework exists. And for that, we look to their general plan and their policies and their code to see what they say about trees. And Daly City is very, frankly, lax about trees. They don't regulate the removal of trees on private property across the city. They do regulate trees within the public right-of-way. So Daly City as a city isn't overly protective for trees compared to some other jurisdictions throughout the Bay Area. And so in light of that, again, we look to see what sort of trees are being removed, and we disclose that fact. It's been disclosed to you, it's disclosed to the board, it's disclosed to the public, and this is an opportunity to discuss the ramifications of that. We didn't identify the need for consideration of alternatives to preserve trees, because we didn't find that their removal was a significant effect of the project. Again, based upon the regulations and policies of the city in which the district's undertaking the project.
Got it. Thank you for that information.
Is that all?
That's my last question. I would simply say that I would like to make a motion to table this for future review, so we can discuss this when we have another opportunity with more community input in all the ways that Trustee Saladin was
Okay.
asking, suggesting, and Vice President Lee. And so I will make that motion
Make a motion to
to
table.
table this, to
Do we have a
revisit it.
second? Hearing none, this motion fails. And now I'm going to call for a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Olchikondi,
No.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Vice President Lee,
Yes.
President Nara.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're on to item 15C2, the resolution 2021-22/4, establishing a real property advisory committee and appointing committee members. Ms. Van Raphorst?
President Tejada. As we've discussed before, before a school district can sell or lease property, as our board is considering doing with the Serramonte Del Rey campus, the California Education Code 17388 requires that a specific process be followed. This process includes establishing a real property advisory committee, commonly known as a 7-11 committee, because it needs to have between 7 and 11 members. In February of 2021, the board authorized the staff to begin recruiting for a 7-11 committee, and I am very excited to bring a slate of people who have volunteered to be members of this committee to you tonight. The proposed committee members meet all of the criteria laid out by the Ed Code, including employees, parents, local landowners, people from the business community, and someone with expertise in this area. So before you tonight is a resolution appointing these community members and directing the committee to begin its work.
You have a motion to approve?
So, I have a motion, actually, I would like to table this. My first comment is, one, for the same concerns I have with the prior item, I think that we should pause on this to make sure that we have our focus on the pandemic and making sure that we're fully prepared moving through this semester before prioritizing any conversations about real estate in our district. I think
Okay,
it's
so
inappropriate.
you're making a motion to table this item.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to revisit this later on.
We have a second. Hearing none, your motion has failed. Now, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved to approve resolution 2021-22/4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Let's do a roll call vote. Sorry, Ms. Bell.
Trustee Olchikondi,
No.
Trustee Solomon,
Aye.
Vice President Lee,
Yes.
President Nara.
Yes. Now on for public hearings. 16A1, public hearing for the adoption of Resolution 2021-2022/2, textbooks and instructional materials. Ms. Baca?
President Tejada. So before you is a resolution to approve our resolution that we have sufficient textbooks and instructional materials for the 21-22 school year. So we recommend that we conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution to make sure that all of our students have sufficient standard-aligned instructional materials.
Okay. This up for public hearing. I'm going to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And 16A2, public hearing and approval of board policy and administrative regulations 6158 on independent study. Ms. Baca?
Presented to you tonight is a revised board policy and administrative regulation 6158 on independent study. A couple of the changes for this independent study to meet AB 130 is that we need to offer independent study for students whose parents felt like their health would be at risk by being in person. And the other requirement with this is that we must, for the high school students at least, we must provide a weekly synchronous instruction for the high school students. And the courses that we offer needs to be A through G approved. And we also have to have some tiered re-engagement for students who are not attending or who are not making progress in submitting their assignments. So just to give you a brief update on where we are with independent study, currently we have 46 students who opted into remote independent study. 25 from Jefferson, 3 from Oceana, 3 from Terra Nova, and 15 from Westmore. And the remote independent study that we are doing will be all done through Apex. So it's a self-paced online module that they can take up to 6 classes per semester. And we currently have 2 independent study teachers that will be taking on this caseload. I want to give a special shout out to our counselors and our vice principals who are tirelessly meeting with our families right now in making sure that they are scheduled in the classes so they can start right away. So with that, I would like to recommend this for public hearing and approval.
Open public hearing. I am closing the public hearing.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I just noticed something on the agenda that I didn't notice until now, and we did hold the public hearings, but the document for 6158, I think, was attached to the prior item. So we'll need to make that correction.
Sorry, which one?
So if you look under 16.
For the textbooks and
Yeah, so
instruction?
notice a public hearing, that should have been the public hearing for the textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but if you click on it, it's actually the public hearing for,
Oh, they were
Independent study?
switched.
and then
Okay.
underneath, so it exists, it just didn't get linked. We did open it
Oh, I
and close
see.
it, so I think we're fine. I'm just calling that to your
Mhm.
attention. We'll make the appropriate links after the fact.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
So do we have a motion to approve?
I think.
Comment and question, yeah.
Okay.
One, I want to thank the district, obviously, for, staying ahead of this, especially as school starting. A lot of districts have been looking at virtual, distance learning options for students. And so that was a question I was going to have prior to this meeting, but I'm glad it's being addressed this way and knowing what the caseloads are looking like. I'm curious because I think with parents and maybe students, just our community knowing about the infection rates, maybe having concerns, will students have, what would the time period be for them to opt in maybe? So for example, if they're already in classes, but they're thinking, hey, I want to do independent study too because my friend's doing it, or it might work better for me and for my safety, my health primarily. Are teachers aware of the opportunities to maybe be an independent study teacher for those of our staff who may also want to opt into that because there's certainly a need for that? Is my first question. And secondly, that's my first question.
The families can opt into remote and independent study pretty much throughout the whole entire school year. And they also have, if they choose to decide to return to in-person, we have 5 days to bring them back in person. So our staff knows that as well. Right now, because of our case load, we don't foresee just yet, having another teacher to teach independent study. Their caseload can actually, go much higher than what we have right now.
Okay. Again, just I guess a related concern or just a comment in terms of outdoor learning. I mean, that's something to be considered outside of maybe this item, but one of the things I noticed is that using our spaces at the schools, some of those concerns, revolve around proximity to other students, obviously. So, I mean, in terms of independent study, if students are looking to come back to school, if they have any concerns, what kind of timeline do we have? Or I guess it would be ongoing feedback from our student trustees, our student advisory council, students on campus. How will that input be integrated in any future changes or considerations in this program? Like if they're interested in independent study, would they want to re-enter, but they're interested in some kind of alternative learning on campus? Are we going to be using some of the hybrid model that we considered before, or are we just simply going with independent study and in-person?
Unfortunately, we are not allowed to offer any hybrid or distance learning. The only one that we have is this remote independent study, so they have to opt into independent study.
Right, that's
For
what I mean.
California law.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's what I mean is what options will they have in terms of, like, where will they be able to have feedback in terms of when they return? How will, would they have any input over how instruction is being modified on campus? For example, if they have a medical condition, is there any way we can modify that or?
So I think what your question is, we would obviously take case by case, right? So,
Yeah.
Though it says for medical reasons, we don't, the parent can just say medical reasons. We're not asking for any proof, we're not asking for, so anybody who wants to be in independent study can be in independent study. So we're not stopping that from happening. But if you're talking about if there's an actual medical reason, then that's a different conversation, right? So we always handle those conversations in a very individualized support for that student.
Okay.
So if your question is there's somebody on there and it's not working and they need to come back into school, obviously we would try to work with them in any way legally possible.
Thank you, yeah, because the reentry plan for like having 5 days, they may be planning themselves of like how they return to school, just the way our students are returning to
Sure.
school right now.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think, what we're offering, what they're asking us to offer the state is not easy for kids to do. It's,
Trustee, you had a comment?
No, I'm glad we have the option of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work on that.
mhm.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject, we are in full in-person learning. I mean, that's what we've been directed to provide, and that's what we're providing. And I want to acknowledge Ms. Baca, because Ms. Baca acknowledged others, but really, this task, there's many monumental tasks that we are all sort of being faced with right now, but this in particular, the state didn't give guidance until very late, and it has been sort of creating a whole new program. Like, she's essentially principal of a whole new program that we're now creating, because we're not allowed to do distance learning. We can't do hybrid. We can't do what we had done before. So we had to create a whole new model, really, from scratch. So I just want to thank her publicly for her very hard work.
I've been the Apex teacher for a while.
What's that?
I've been the Apex
Yeah,
teacher.
and she's the
Yes,
Apex
that's
teacher.
true.
Mhm.
Above and beyond.
Thank you.
So thank you.
All right.
Yes.
You
And
have
so
any
I'm glad we're able to do this for our students who not only just feel uncomfortable, but I really felt like the state of California missed an opportunity to really dive into at-home learning for those who need it for a variety of issues. There's a lot of students where in-person school just does not work for them, and they felt much more comfortable through social anxiety, different issues at home. And so I'm glad that we were able to continue that and not just force everybody to just dive into the pool. Some kids were, like, yay, I'm ready to jump right back in. But others need to ease in, and we need to be mindful of that. So thank you for that work and putting all this together so that, again, we can continue to be the district that meets students where they are and doesn't dictate what they should be doing. So.
Thank you to the staff members who are teaching them as well.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And so I'm hoping that, I know we're doing it this year, but I do hope that this is something that we can continue to do if we have funding. I know everything is tied to funding, but we can expand on, as a possibility.
COVID,
Make lemonade out of
Yeah.
lemon.
Right.
yeah, if distance learning has taught us anything,
Yeah. So I will go ahead
different way
and-
of learning.
move to approve?
Second?
Aye.
Consideration of future agenda items? Yes.
Yeah, I have two. One, just considering, as we're returning to school, just transitioning, something around public transportation and our relationship with Samtrans and how we can, how we're looking at the busing situation and how that's changing, and it probably will. Not just given COVID, but just given our ongoing, I think, just communication over, our buses in Pacifica, in Daly City, and throughout our district, so, in Brisbane.
So just to be clear, a discussion item about what we're doing with public transportation throughout our district?
Yeah, that would include those things. It's the first one. Second one, welcoming our communications director here, beginning of school year. I look forward to a report on the communications in our district, and one of the specific items I would like to hear about is where we're at with interpreters, and I know some of the forms around COVID translated. Seeing that we can get bilingual translation in our district, but also interpreters. Also instruction, bilingual instruction, having instructional aids, and where we are with that.
So, and just ensuring that we're not giving direction directly to staff, but that one of the things that we can do is that in the goals session that you weren't able to attend, we did have a really robust discussion about communication, and we did goals, but that's something that we could add to the goals, and it could be in there as well, because one of the goals, if you look through it, is to develop the communication plan, and that could be a specific part of the plan. So I think that, I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item. I'm wondering, and you're free to make whatever suggestions you want, but I'm just saying that it may be something that could be developed in the purview of the goals.
Yeah, that too, absolutely. But as a future agenda item, I would like to hear a communications report just whenever that, it's early in the year, you're just getting started. So obviously at the pace of the work, but I do think interpreters and, instructional aids, bilingual aids is one of those things that is something to keep in mind in the larger realm of communication that we should be addressing.
And then if we could just add to our next meeting, closed session, to discuss and finalize the goals.
And that would be the 14th?
The 14th.
But she's not going to be here.
Yeah, whenever.
Right, yeah, because if,
I'll let Tina talk about it.
You're passing on the buck on the goal.
Tony's like, you said you could handle it.
okay. Goal to get Tina more candy.
I like it.
You're not off the hook, Doreen.
Massages every Friday. All right.
Okay.
Adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.